morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Global Atheist News Roundup, dateline the 15th of July 2023. This week's headlines. A gunman opened fire at a Lebanon mosque, killing one person and wounding several others. The Palestinian boy who was killed during the Israeli assault in Jenin was unarmed. Muslims across Pakistan hold anti-Sweden protests to denounce the burning of Islam's holy book. Mormons walk away from major multinational tax evasion scheme. Many African American Southern Baptist churches have women pastors on their staff. Will they be expelled next? Authorities involved in the probe into child sexual abuse among Jehovah's Witnesses in Pennsylvania charge 5 more. The Lord's Prayer opening may be problematic, says the Archbishop of York. The National Secular Society calls for change as religious education is rated the least useful subject again. The Lebanese army issued a statement saying that an armed man opened fire at a group of people as they were leaving their mosque in eastern Lebanon, killing one of them. It added that as troops tried to detain the gunman, he opened fire at the force, whose members fired back and wounded him. The army said he was being held in a hospital. The man killed was identified as Lebanese citizen Ali Shibli, a schoolteacher. The wounded are also Lebanese citizens. Eyewitnesses and the family of a 16-year-old Palestinian who was shot dead during Israel's military assault in Jenin told the BBC he was unarmed and killed for no reason after videos emerged of the moment of his death. 12 Palestinians, including 4 teenage children and 1 Israeli soldier, were killed during the 2-day incursion into the occupied West Bank last week. Israel said all the Palestinians who were killed were combatants, but the videos show Abdul Rahman Hassan Ahmad Harden, 16, was unarmed when he was shot. The teenager was shot in the head outside Al-Amal Hospital on the 2nd day of the military incursion, which Israel said was intended to root out a safe haven of terrorism in Jenin refugee camp. Thousands of Muslims in Pakistan gathered to protest last week's burning of the Qur'an, Islam's holy book, in Stockholm, following a call by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to send a strong message to Sweden. The biggest anti-Sweden protests were held in the eastern city of Lahore and Karachi, the largest city in the southern Islamic country, where thousands of people gathered on main roads before dispersing peacefully. In the capital, Islamabad, lawyers holding copies of the Qur'an protested in front of the Supreme Court, while smaller groups of worshippers gathered outside mosques demanding the severing of diplomatic ties with Sweden. The Mormon Church is significantly reducing its use of a controversial shell company after an investigation revealed it had engaged in alleged serious tax evasions in Australia. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormons, set up a tax structure in 2012 that allowed its adherents in Australia to accumulate exemptions worth hundreds of millions of dollars that are not lawfully available to followers of other religions. The investigation found some of its tax activities could be in breach of Australian tax laws. Now, the Latter-day Saints Church, which has repeatedly said it complies with tax laws, has moved to unwind the tax structure. In Australia, the Church has ensured that donations and tithing, neither of which are tax deductible, have been routed through a charitable trust to gain 100% tax deductibility. Mormons are required to pay 10% of their gross income in a practice known as tithing, which is a significant financial imposition on followers. Australia is unusual among English-speaking countries in that it does not allow tax deductions for tithing or church donations, but it does allow generous deductibility for charitable giving. The use of the Sydney-based LDS Charities Australia, which has no paid staff, just a shell, ramped up in recent years and received $90 million in donations in 2021. Earlier this year, Southern Baptist expelled 5 churches from the nation's largest Protestant denomination for having women as pastors. Now, the leader of a fellowship of African American Southern Baptist pastors wonders if their church will be next. In a letter last week, the president of the Southern Baptist Convention's National African American Fellowship asked to meet with the denomination's president, saying the SBC's recent decisions to expel churches with women pastors had caused division within the SBC and may disproportionately impact NAAF-affiliated congregations. Many of our churches assign the title pastor to women who oversee ministries of the church under the authority of a senior male pastor, for example, children's pastor, worships pastor, discipleship pastor, and so on, wrote the Reverend Gregory Perkins, pastor of the View Church in Menifee, California, and president of the NAAF. He also said a proposed amendment to the SBC's constitution to bar churches with women pastors violated the autonomy of local churches, which is a vital Baptist belief. A Pennsylvania grand jury investigating child sexual abuse in the Jehovah's Witness community has charged 5 more people with raping or molesting children as young as 4. The latest developments in an ongoing probe that has identified 14 suspects. Pennsylvania Attorney General Michelle Henry said that while the misconduct dates back years or even decades, the trauma endures for the victims. Henry did not address the church's handling of complaints, but said that the investigation would continue. Critics say that Jehovah's Witness elders have treated child sexual abuse as a sin rather than a crime, documenting complaints in internal files but not reporting them to authorities. And they say the church often required a second witness to substantiate a complaint, a standard that can be impossible to meet when perpetrators often isolate their victims. Martin Hall of York Haven, PA, a former elder who left the church in 2016 and now advocates for survivors of abuse in the church, applauded investigators. "I hope the elders are arrested, the ones who knew about child abuse and covered it up, and then it happened again," said Hall, who testified to the grand jury about the church's structure and about his own daughter's abuse within a Jehovah's Witnesses congregation. He also hopes organizational leaders are called to account, because it's not just a Pennsylvania problem, it's a national problem. In the charges announced on Friday, Henry said that the men had groomed or gained access to the children through the church, sometimes when the child's family took the person into their home. One person said that she was raped 50 or more times between the ages of 7 and 12 by a church member who was 18 when the assaults began. The Archbishop of York has suggested that the opening words of the Lord's Prayer, recited by Christians all over the world for 2,000 years, may be problematic because of their patriarchal association. In his opening address to a meeting of the Church of England's ruling body, the General Synod, Stephen Cottrell dwelt on the words "Our Father," the start of the prayer, based on Matthew 6, 9-13 and Luke 11, 2-4 in the New Testament. I know the word father is problematic for those whose experience of earthly fathers has been destructive and abusive, and for all of us who have laboured rather too much from an oppressively patriarchal grip on life, he said. His comment, a brief aside in a speech that focused on the need for unity, will divide members of the C of E, a body whose differences on issues of sexuality, identity, and equality have been highly visible for years. After Cottrell's speech, Canon Dr. Chris Sugden, chair of the conservative Anglican mainstream group, pointed out that in the Bible, Jesus urged people to pray to our Father. He said, "Is the Archbishop of York saying Jesus was wrong, or that Jesus was not pastorally aware?" It seems to be emblematic of the approach of some church leaders to take their cues from culture rather than scripture. Reverend Christina Rees, who campaigned for female bishops, said Cottrell had put his finger on an issue that's a really live issue for Christians and has been for many years. She added, "The big question is, do we really believe that God believes that male human beings bear his image more fully and accurately than women?" The answer is absolutely not, she says. The National Secular Society has called for a rethink of religious education as polls again reveal the subject's unpopularity. The poll last month revealed religious education, RE, to be one of the least popular school subjects, with over a quarter of those surveyed naming RE the least useful subject, while 26% said they would remove it from the school curriculum. In contrast, 88% said more needs to be done to educate children on personal finance, and 63% of teachers said managing money should be added to the school curriculum. The findings from a survey of 2,000 adults via OnePoll on behalf of Discount for Teachers are consistent with other recent research on RE. Last year, a YouGov poll found 58% of Brits consider it not very important or not important enough to teach religious studies at secondary school. A separate survey found 34% of academies in England do not include RE in the school timetable. It is the only compulsory subject that is locally determined, largely by religious interest groups. It is even less balanced in faith schools, which teach the subject in accordance with the religion of the school. Some proponents of RE have resisted attempts to make it more balanced, inclusive, and relevant by replacing it with a religion and worldviews subject, similar to recent reforms in Wales. 2 practitioners recently announced the creation of the Religious Education Network, which rejects the downgrading of religion into just another worldview. And so it goes on. Finally, see this video of what happens when Jesus gets into you. Stay on this channel to watch Tercia and I interview Polyp, the professional political and religious cartoonist. We're very pleased to have him on the show. And don't forget to watch Views on the News, the show where our opinionated panel give their views on the items I've just reported about. This has been Global Atheist News. Please like, subscribe and share. Thank you for watching.